Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're cutting through all the hype to get to the reality of artificial intelligence in 2026. After years of these breathless promises, the entire industry is facing a massive reality check. Some analysts are even calling it the Great Recalibration. Let's get right into it.
So, on the surface, it really does look like AI has completely conquered the world. I mean, from drafting emails to writing code, a massive 75% of knowledge workers are using AI tools now. And that widespread adoption, well, it's created this powerful perception of a total takeover. But that perception isn't quite the reality.
Because the real question isn't about access, it's about agency. It's one thing to use an AI as a kind of creative partner, a co-pilot. But it's another thing entirely to just hand over the keys to the car and let it drive. So how many businesses are actually willing to do that?
And that brings us to the crucial point. When we look past all the public chatter and really dig into what's happening in enterprise production, what the data shows is, well, it's a pretty shocking disconnect. 5%. That's it. That is the shockingly small number of AI systems that have actually been given the authority to make and execute significant business decisions without a human checking their work. Think about that. We've gone from 75% of people using it down to just 5% of systems having any real autonomous power.
And just to be super clear here, we're not talking about using a chatbot for ideas. Real implementation means giving AI what's called decision authority. That's the power to trigger a financial trade, or deploy code, or even make a medical diagnosis. It's a huge leap of faith that it turns out almost no one is ready to take.
In fact, that journey from just an idea to having a real-world impact is, well, it's brutal. Analysts have started calling it the funnel of failure. As you can see, most companies never even make it past the exploration phase. And of the few that do manage to launch a pilot, the vast majority just fail to deliver any measurable return, which leaves us with that tiny 5% who actually succeed in production.
Okay, so why is this happening? Why are so many companies stuck in what some are calling pilot purgatory? Let's take a look at the fundamental technical barriers that are holding AI back. The core reason, really, is a strategic retreat from the idea of autonomy. The whole industry has kind of quietly backed away from the dream of these AI agents that replace humans. Instead, the focus now is on a co-pilot model, where the AI assists a human who is still firmly in control. And here's the key. This wasn't a business choice. It was a technical necessity.
And here's the fundamental reason why. A landmark study from Apple Research back in 2025 really punctured the hype bubble. Their finding was simple but profound. Current AI doesn't actually reason. What it does is perform incredibly advanced pattern matching. So, when it's faced with new problems, things outside its training data, this illusion of thinking, as they called it, just crumbles.
And this gets right to the heart of the trust issue. The data here reveals this critical flaw: hallucinations. When the AI just confidently makes things up. And get this, it's not a bug that can be fixed. It's actually a core feature of how these models work. With error rates as high as 24% in critical fields like law and medicine, the risk is just way too high.
So this really spells out the hard boundaries for AI in 2026. Autonomy pretty much stops where ambiguity begins, where legal liability exists for any errors, and where the AI has to interact with the messy, unpredictable physical world. I mean, think about it. You can't exactly get insurance for a hallucinating AI lawyer or surgeon, right?
Now, this gap between all the hype and the reality, it's not just some academic problem. It has massive, real-world consequences for our economy and, well, for our workforce. Consider this number, $500 billion. That's the projected capital expenditure gap. It's the absolutely staggering amount of money companies are spending on AI servers and infrastructure that isn't yet supported by any actual revenue from AI products. This has created a classic infrastructure bubble. And it's eerily similar to the dot-com bust. When companies spent billions laying fiber optic cables for internet demand that wouldn't fully show up for another decade. We are essentially building a digital railroad to a city that doesn't quite exist yet.
And the human cost is just as stark. This hiring chart shows a really worrying trend. Senior developer hiring is growing at 22%, but look at junior hiring. It's basically flatlined. So why the gap? Well, AI is automating all the simple, repetitive tasks that junior employees used to do to learn their craft. In effect, we are breaking the very first rung on the career ladder.
And this trend creates a dangerous long-term risk. It's known as the glass cockpit effect.
So just like pilots can lose the ability to fly a plane manually if they over-rely on autopilot, we risk our own critical thinking skills just withering away by outsourcing them to AI. This could leave us totally unable to spot when the AI is wrong, or even worse, helpless when it inevitably fails.
So where does all this leave us? If the current hype is wrong, what is the right way to think about AI's future? To really understand where we're going, we first need to find the right historical analogy for where we are right now.
And this gives us some real perspective. See, AI in 2026, it's not like electricity, which was an instant universal utility. No, it's far more like the internet back in 1998, a massive infrastructure build-out that's still waiting for its killer apps to show up. And it's also a painful echo of that failed lights-out factory dream from the 1980s, which is just a stark reminder that automating complex, real-world work is incredibly difficult.
Ultimately, this is the reality of AI today. It is not a magic wand. It's an incredibly powerful but also deeply flawed new kind of tool. The phase of wonder and magic, that's over. Now, the hard, unglamorous work of building real value has begun. And the defining question for the next decade won't be who can build the smartest model, but who can do the most useful work with an imperfect one.